I threw a couple things on the bottom of this first slide. One of the ones which is most identifiable, if anybody has a Ford motor car for the last few years globally, they have what we call Easy Fill, which is the capless refueling. I started a division with ITW on roll control. We did coatings for fasteners. We did fastener design, and then I've got my latest project. The Ford Easy Fill took a solid decade to get done, so some of this stuff takes a while. Okay, I think, all right, that's the cover of my book that Phil just showed you, so I'll get into this. I use a Wikipedia. It defines fuzzy front end as the messy period of new product development, the development process where the organization formulates a concept of the product, and they said it can consume up to 50% of the development time. That's not really an understatement the way generally it's done. What I call that development time, though, is opportunity costs. And having led global product development groups, after having run a bunch of manufacturing and profitable divisions, I came to the concept that I'm going to present to you tonight, and it is actually applicable beyond product. And so bear that in mind. But I wrote the book basically coming off of a product background. So that's what I call opportunity cost. That's the major cost element. I guess you can see my pointer too, right? It's the cost of developing something. And if you're developing something and you could do something else, then you are spending your opportunity cost. The biggest factor of that is time. Something, no matter how good it is, if it's not what the customer will buy, it can be a huge waste of time. The coulda, woulda, shoulda. Our competitors can beat us and so forth. I'll come back to some of that. Warren Buffett, when Charlie Munger, who's down here, was asked how come he and Warren Buffett are so successful, Charlie said, Warren and I know better than most people what we know and what we don't know. That's more better than 10 IQ points. That's what Charlie Munger said. And my point is, what we do not know is what the idea sheet process is about. What we did not know, and that is what will sell. I have encountered a lot of development processes, a lot of books as to here's how we do it. And I've never seen anything where people really go through these processes and actually do it. So just as my personal opinion. Now, if we go into our customers and we send our salespeople into our customers and we say, what can we do for you? There's a lot about that, voice of the customer, and you've heard all these things. And with the computers, everybody has computerized that kind of thing. But basically, if you just kind of go in and say that, they'll say, give me a lower price, and how about a cup of coffee? If we go into a customer, and this is what this is all about, and say, we've been thinking about your business, we have some ideas, and we think they might help you in your business. Would you please judge these or tell us what you think? The answer from your customer is likely going to be, show me your ideas. And so the question is, from where do we get these ideas? And the answer is from what I call an idea sheet meeting. I like that word, that phrase so much, I registered the trademark, which is, I get to put the little R up there. So the idea sheet meeting is the beginning of the idea sheet process. Who goes to this meeting? And it's the 8 or 12 of your most innovative and positive people. Senior management, engineering types, controller, operations manager, shipping, receiving, sales, okay, first line supervisors, all those people can be great contributors in this meeting. If the boss, and I'll get back to defining the boss, but if the boss intimidates people, this is probably a meeting you don't want them to be in. I've done this well over 100 times. It becomes a 4-hour meeting, and I'll show you how that's done. And it's actually becomes a lot of fun. So the 8 or 12 of your most innovative and positive people Now, guess what? This is going to be a Zoom meeting instead of the wonderful conference rooms with coffee and donuts that we've all enjoyed. So we'll do it remote and focused. But the point is that your people get out of their office, away from their desk, and in today's world, shut off your phone so that they're focused on our business. And I'm going to use our business, your company, but I always kind of adopt the company for the day when I'm working on it. So the idea sheet meeting is basically because your people collectively as a group know more about your products and markets than anybody on the planet. So the idea is to pause the daily tasks, leverage this knowledge, and focus for growth in an idea sheet meeting. So first, getting into this, we got to redefine some terms. And I learned this from the head of Procter & Gamble's R&D years ago. I don't know if they're still doing it there, but commonly we say, gee, I have an idea. And if you think about it, especially in a group meeting, or we're saying, hey, we're doing ideation, whatever that is, or we're doing brainstorming, we go, oh, let's all discuss the idea. In reality, as you begin, this is really only a thought. This is the discipline that they put into Procter & Gamble and that I adopted and I have preached to a lot of different companies. You don't have an idea, you have a thought until its attributes, which is why it's cool, specifications, what's it got to do, and alternatives, what are the other ways to do it, or I used to say competition, but that confused people. But that's what the idea sheet meeting process is about, taking thoughts to ideas. There are no bad thoughts. Can't criticize them. Somebody says something, hey, I have not an idea, I have a thought. You don't criticize it. If one person likes it, we're going to include it in our list. We're going to make a list. If it's silly, we delete it. But the idea, the concept is don't lose any idea. And then the other thing, which is really, really important, is resist not invented here syndrome. There are people in the world who feel superior or feel like they're really contributing by shooting down ideas. And when thoughts are in their infancy, they're a lot easier to shoot down than when somebody's gone through and thought about it. So this not invented here syndrome, those people, you really don't want to get them in the meeting if you know who they are. And if they are in the meeting, I usually shoot them down gently, but shoot them down. Old ideas are still, that are no longer on the radar, are worth revisiting. I had one meeting one time and they say, we patented this thing 6 years ago. We showed it to Walmart and they said they didn't want it. So, but we still have the patent and we got some samples in the back room. And the question is, did you ever show that to anybody else? And the answer was, well, no. So that's the kind of old idea, and the world changes. So maybe some of the old ideas are worth revisiting. Back burner projects are the other ones. Well, we've been kind of working on that for a long time. And then whatever people happen to think up on the way to work that morning, or as they got out of bed, or things they thought up 2 months ago and never really got around to working through it. So we want each of those kind of things, anything anybody will come up with, on an idea sheet. And we're not going to judge these these ideas or these thoughts in the meeting. So there are no bad thoughts. That's real key. Okay, the idea sheet meeting, to get everybody going and talking, I say go around the table. This is going to be go around the screen or go down the list. And I ask everybody, because I'm the guy from far away, what's your name, what's your responsibility, how long have you been with the company, and what's your brief work history. The comment I make after I go around the room with that meeting is, and you hear people that just started with the company but have 10 years and so forth, but add it up when you go around a table of 10 or 12 people, and you've got a whole lot of experience, and usually it has everything to do with the company you're sitting in. So we begin with that, say, who are you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Usually everybody else in the room knows everybody else, but they're introducing themselves a bit to me. And then the first question is, what are you working on? What's your current project? And so everybody can answer that question. Then as you get through that, you say, and what are your thoughts for growth? Did you bring something today for us to put up on the board? The thoughts and projects are listed and categorized. Now, I said this, I'm repeating, but everybody's always working on cost reduction. So that's a list that goes down one side of the page. and it's a good thing. People are working on cost reduction. Those are good projects. Product evolution is the next steps in making what we're offering better. And again, this can be a physical product. This can be a service. This can be a process. In today's world, it could be a whole lot of apps. But I'm not an app guy so much. The other thing is new to us, which is a Me Too project, which is not as much fun, but a lot of people do that. I spent a lot of time working with the Honda Motor Company, and they, as a corporate mantra, do not want to be first to market. They want to be second to market, which was tough for me because I was kind of peddling new to the world stuff. So, and new to the world at the bottom is the best for growth. If you can come up with something that's really new to the world, not existed before, it's real good. And I've done that in a couple of instances, the capless refueling being one of those. That's a big area. It's also the most risky and takes maybe the most work because it doesn't just happen. So the idea sheet meeting, again, there's greater collective knowledge of your business in the room at this moment or at the moment of the meeting than anywhere else on the planet. And that's, you got to think about that. The goal is to leverage that. So you go around the room, and when everybody's contributed and we've got it on a list, the listing is typically 15 to 20. I've had as many as 30. I had as few as 6, but that was a really tough company. But these are thoughts and projects. I just see it, projects as misspelled. I apologize for that. And you'll have 15 or 20 or more, and they'll be in columns: cost reduction, product evolution, new to us, and new to the world. And the difference between product evolution and new to the world is something that people really like to spend a few minutes talking about. So you think, oh yeah, we're doing the brand. Well, really it's product evolution, or vice versa. They thought they were just making a small change, and when they really analyze it, it's new to the world. So at this point, after, and this is usually an hour, hour and a half, we say, okay, a 30-minute breakout session. We get everybody into groups of 2, or if there's odd numbers, 3. We make an idea sheet for each of the thoughts, each project, each thought, each heading that are under those categories. This is my idea sheet because I had them printed, and it's got my company on the top of it. But this is pretty straightforward, simple stuff. I'm being a little facetious with this example, but the first thing you got to do is draw a picture at the top. And there are some things where you could also put a description of verbal description of what you're talking about up there, or whatever buzzwords you want to use. But there are a lot of mechanical and electrical and so forth things where people sit down and try to draw that picture, and they go, wait a minute, actually that doesn't make any sense. So that's a place where it might stop. If you can depict it, then you draw a picture at the top, and or you grab it out of today's world, you copy paste it. But you get a picture of what it is that this thought is about. And then the group of 2 or 3 people sit down and start putting in all the attributes. Why is this cool? What is this good? What's good about it in that column? What's it really got to do? And, an ASTM V117 corrosion spec is cool if you know that. But even if it's something simple, like you say, must not rust in salt water. At this point in time, the detail here really doesn't matter, as long as the concept that we need a specification for that exists. As a quality group, you guys know that QS 9000, TS, and so forth. And then what are the alternatives? So in my ice cream cone, you can see that example. The other point that these 2 or 3 people will spend a few minutes on is, does this really fit our company? Does this make any sense? Can we conceive a contribution to the business? It'd be nice to have a cost accountant figure all that out, but it really doesn't matter, because if you think of your top 8, 12 people, they know intuitively what this is about. You know what your costs are. You know what your manufacturing capabilities are. Does it make sense? And if it does, good. Then you've got an idea sheet and you put it in the pile. So the group reconvenes after this 30 minutes. Sometimes it gets to be 45. And each group presents their, and it would be typically 2 to 3 per group, maybe 4. But these folks then will represent those idea sheets to the group at large. And as the group at large listens to this, they may come up with further attributes, further specifications, and further alternatives. And so you just simply add them to the list at that point. So now after you go through each one of these, you sit back and what you realize is you now have the collective knowledge of your entire company on a single set of idea sheets, one side of 8.5 by 11 paper. Okay, anybody got a question that far? Or? Nope, nope. Okay, so this is kind of a picture of that. This is a silly example. I had a lot of these with various companies' ideas on them, but this one is an ice cream cone. There's the attributes. What's it got to be? Shouldn't be breaking. Try to, it might have a drip spec. It might have a stay cold spec. It might have an easy to hold spec. And what are the alternatives? Now the key is this is not dessert. This is just an ice cream cone. So if you wanted to have something about pie or cake, you make another sheet. Now, I'm using silly examples in food, but when you get into machines and things that you're making, and the difference between A and B, make 2 sheets. Don't try to stuff all that stuff into one sheet. You want discrete ideas, okay? The idea sheet also, we said come up with, you're thinking out of the box, come up with something as an idea. The sheet does not have to prove or show that it will work, only make it understandable as to what we're talking about. The presumption is that it will work. Now, I'll probably repeat myself a couple times, but in the meeting, there will be some things that people like, and there'll be even things that, the group starts to get enthralled with because they never thought of that before. But the point is, this is not the time to run off into the laboratory or into the shop or wherever and see if you can make it work. This is the time to just get it on that sheet and then clean it up. If a valued customer asks us, how does that work? Will that work? How does that work? The proper answer to that question is, how do you think it should work? We want their perspective. We're looking to find out what it is we do not know. So we're looking for the customer's perspective on this. Okay. So at this point too, we got to resist emotional involvement. We should not be running off into the shop to make one to see if it really works. Some of these ideas are going to be more appealing to us than others. We got to resist the not invented here syndrome, not shoot our own ideas down because of why? Because we're trying to find out what our customer wants to know. Ownership, whose idea is this, and credit are not important until the product is sold and shipping over the dock. Then we can have a party and bust some champagne. But your idea to my idea is totally not the point. It is a thought that we fleshed into an idea. So you got to stay unemotionally involved with the idea until we present it to the valued customer. Okay? So who is the valued customer? I'll come to in a minute, but stay uninvolved. And then the question, and you can ask me this, is will we give away our great ideas? And my answer is a resounding no. And I can go through a lot of discussion on that. I've got another slide someplace. But this is not a risk. We thought up something, we put it in an idea sheet, we think it's really cool. If it is a great idea, that idea sheet basically predates our presentation to the customer. If you can get a confidentiality agreement, that's fine, but not necessary. So that's not an issue. And I can speak to that more if you'd like to. So now we have the knowledge of our entire company on one set of idea sheets. And I'll go back through that again. If you think about it, when everybody in the group of 2 or 3 and everybody in the room runs out of things to add to those sheets, and this is a group of people that really know what we're doing, this is the group of people that runs a company, we have the entire collective knowledge. Now, instead of running off, we go to the valued customer who will judge. The valued customer is, and before we go there, you clean these up. If they're handwritten, in the old days before virtual, we used to scrawl them on the board, scrawl them onto the sheets. It really didn't matter. After the meeting, or as the meeting wrapped, we needed to clean those sheets up with pictures with CAD and so forth, which is a lot easier to do, but clean them up so they look nice and presentable, and then present them to our valued customer. The valued customer is somebody whose opinion we can be sure of, somebody who we trust, somebody who we know, and we're not going to just show them to one person. We're going to go to a sequence of valued customers. And after every valued customer has told us what they think, and we've learned what we did not know, then we'll change those sheets up with the new thoughts and the new attributes and so forth, and move forward. We will not do a ranking. We will not choose what we think is going to be great. We can put this stack of paper with the ones we think they're going to like the best on top. That's okay, because we're really at the mercy of the customer's attention span as to how long they're going to listen to us. They're going to judge, we're not, and we got to be careful not to prejudge. Now, this is sacrilegious in a lot of product development processes, and you guys have seen them, and you've seen the diagrams and the charts but in my experience, us trying to figure out what the greatest thing since sliced bread is going to be is a waste of our opportunity cost or time. So the valued customer is going to judge, okay? The person that we're talking to is not the buyer, the young folk that are person, man or woman that got hired out of college, put in an office, told to get the lowest price possible and see what you can learn from the suppliers. That's not the person whose opinion we want. We want the opinion of somebody. In a lot of cases, it's not even purchasing. It's maybe the plant floor folks at our customers. It's maybe the end user. It's maybe, I spent a lot of time in retail. It's a store manager, and even the people that stock the shelves. They have opinions which are very valuable, and if our thought, our idea has to do with their life, they're the people to give us the input. So take our sheets to the valued customer, clean them all up so they look nice. And the first big thing is the valued customer meeting is not selling. The valued customer meeting is to find out what we don't know, which is what will sell or what they will buy. Uh-oh, my internet connection. I don't like that little note, but let's keep going. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Gotcha.
The best, are we there? Okay. I got that said my internet connection. Ooh, scare me. The best answer that the valued customer can give us is no. And why is it no? They will save us opportunity cost. I once had something I thought of, which I thought it was great. We put it on an idea sheet. I went to Walmart and we said, look at this, look at this. And the guy said, that is the most innovative, creative, wonderful thing I think I've ever seen. And it'll never sell at Walmart. You go, whoa, should I be hurt? Should I be? No, that's opportunity cost that he just saved me. I learned why. And it's, we didn't design it, we didn't sample it, we didn't test it, we didn't validate it, we didn't do market research. We were not working what we emotionally involved wanted to go do.
Eric, we're losing now, Eric.
Would tell us no. So the best answer is no. No.
Eric, can you hear me?
Don't know exactly.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Phil.
Okay. Is it me or is
Not
it
hear
Eric?
me? You can hear me now.
I think you're back now. You or I are back, but now, you sound okay right now.
Yeah, he was breaking up a little bit there.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't me. Yeah, Eric, I guess your internet's a little unstable. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Go ahead. You're good now.
Okay. So
Yep.
I'll go fast. If it's yes, then can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
You losing me?
In and out.
Yeah, you're in and out right now. For the last minute or so, last 45 seconds.
Okay. Well, I'll try to talk louder. Why they think it is cool. We really need to understand. And oh yeah, my microphone was doing something there.
Yeah.
We need to understand why they, for different reasons. You not hear me?
Yeah.
Eric,
Eric, maybe would you
than what we did. There's something about mute over here. Mute. Is that better?
I'll tell you what, Eric, we can see your slides. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Perhaps if, can you, maybe if you get your cell phone nearby, if you call in on the cell phone, leave the slides up and use the cell phone for the voice. Do you want to try that? I can give you the number right now.
Okay. Go ahead.
312-626-6799.
Okay.
And then when they ask for the code, I got that here ready for you.
Welcome to Zoom.
Okay.
Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Okay, the meeting ID is 392
Okay.
634 514 and pound.
Okay.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Just press pound, Phil?
Please
Yes.
enter the meeting password.
And then put your
followed by pound.
mute your computer screen
Okay.
and use the
I
You
gotta
have
do.
not entered any number.
Here, I gotta do the password. 01515. Oops, nuts. I did.
yeah.
I did. I hit.
You entered 01512. This meeting, please re-enter.
01515
152. Yeah.
2 pound.
You entered 15152. This meeting password is invalid.
No, it's 015, Eric. 015
Yeah.
152.
Doggone it. Okay, sorry guys. I'll start over. I'm looking at that's no.
Actually, your voice is coming along really good right now. So
Is it?
just keep going. We'll go with this right now and see what happens.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so the second best answer is yes. You know, if they say, hey, that's really nice, the attributes then, why they like it, I almost guarantee are going to be different than what we thought. It's a little bit different, and we really need to understand that. The other thing is that they're going to have a little different perspective on specifications than we thought about, and this is what we really need to get from them. So if they like it, that's great, but we really need to understand because now we got to meet those specifications, so we better understand what that is. Okay, the very best answer you can get, I call golden answer, is if it only would, I understand what you're saying, but let me show you, if it would only do this, I would buy it. And at that point, we make our idea fit their need. Now we spend our opportunity cost and we design and develop. Okay? So the best idea is the best answer is the golden answer. And we have new to the world, and our valued customer and us probably didn't know exactly what that was when we walked into the meeting. So as smart as we are, it's more likely that we're going to succeed with the idea sheet process. I think that's my last slide. Yeah, there's my little advertisement. Go back here. This is not a sales meeting. Just to stress that. And so your salesman can go along. I think I said in my book they can drive and park the car, but they have to kind of take a back seat, because we're not trying to talk anybody into anything. We're trying to find out what we did not know. Okay, so that was pretty fast, huh, Phil? So there's that. I have one more slide, which I could talk about patents, if anybody cares. But and this is sacrilegious too. But my experience, patents really don't have value with the customers. Patents have value keeping your competitors at bay, and losing that good idea because we went in and talked to the customer is not a risk. The one caveat I get at the bottom of the page there is don't invent with your customers. And I could tell you stories about that. Tell your customer, here's what we thought of. Let them say it's great. Now, if it would only do this, and then go do that and sell it. So, okay, there's my pitch. xgrowthp.com is the website, and xgrowthp@gmail.com. I've got a couple other emails too, I'm not really pushing the book, but that was the only good picture I had of it that I could snip and stick on here. So it is available on Amazon. Okay, who's got a question? Please ask me something.
Questions? Any questions for Eric?
Yes, I have.
Don't forget to unmute. Don't forget to unmute. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. And who is this?
Okay.
Who is this?
This is Winfred Holloway.
Hi, Winfred. Yes,
Hi,
go ahead.
I was wondering, you said that you want to present the different idea sheets to the customer as long as you have your attention. But if you have a dozen of them, then how do you, when you're going into the meeting, how do you know how long you're going to have their attention for? And then wouldn't you still want to move what you believe as a group, your best ideas, to the front of the presentation?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I think I meant to say that. Yeah, you put those on top of the pile, and you don't necessarily have to take them all in. Sometimes they'll react to an idea sheet you're showing them, and they'll go to something that we had another idea sheet, so you quick yank that out of the bottom of the pile. But yeah, organizing the pile for that given customer is really kind of the way to do it. You're right. Yeah, and the attention span is the variable. So when they start to, their eyes glaze over, or, but you hope you get some good reactions before you run out of gas with them, before lunchtime or whatever the time is. Yeah.
Another question.
Yes.
Can I ask another one?
Sure, go ahead. I've got a question too. Go ahead, Winfred.
Okay. So when you go into the breakout groups, I'm assuming it's a good idea to have the author of the idea as part of the breakout group that you're going to come up with the attributes and specifications
Absolutely,
for.
yes.
But when you're doing the presentation, is it taboo to have the author be the person presenting his idea?
Well, you're not selling, so
right.
It typically, they probably have something else to do. The best, and I don't know if I said it there, the best thing that the boss can do, your high-level guy, is go to that valued customer meeting. You don't have too many people there. So in my book, I talk about having a ninja. When you get done with the idea sheet meeting, everybody walks out and goes back and answers the phone, goes gets coffee, has lunch, and goes back to their normal day. You got to get those sheets together. You have to have somebody who's going to orchestrate and decide the valued customer meetings, and you have to have somebody that will get that done. They say, oh, let sales do that. No, It's really not a sales function, unless you have some exceptional, very experienced, very prospective executive salespeople. But it's really a management function. It's the boss's function. I have a whole nother presentation, which I could run through for you guys, so you probably don't have time, but about management commitment, which is to say that the only way you're really going to get this done is if the boss is totally behind it. And so, so that the likelihood that somebody that thought it up is going to go present it to the customer isn't so great, because you got a big number of them, and it's not really a big plus because you're not selling it. And I've had that guy with me in some of these meetings, and the customer tells them essentially no, and the person, this is emotionally involved, the guy couldn't hear that, and it cost us a bunch of time and effort and loss and so forth. That one I wrote up in my book too. So it's not really a great, it's not necessary. It's not a great idea. We have the collective knowledge. We got what the thought is. We have it worked into an idea, and that's the collective knowledge of the company. And that's the name of that tune. That's all we need. Now we need it objectively presented, not sold, not embellished, just objectively presented to say, hey, what do you think? Because we want to know what they think, not what we think. And we know what the guy that thought it up thinks. He loves it, I hope, or he shouldn't have brought it up. But so does that answer what you're asking? It's a really good question. And
yeah, it does.
There's a lot of psychology to this. It's who do you bring into the meeting initially? And I think I said it, but if your top guy is, and I use the boss for CEO, C, whatever, the top guy. But if the boss intimidates the crew, then do not have the boss in the meeting. And that's very common, oh, let's have the top guy in the meeting. And I have worked, I go in typically, what I've done in the past is with the boss that's going to sponsor this the day before and have that discussion with them and say, if your people are going to, be afraid to say something because they don't want you to think that they're less than wonderful, then don't go to the meeting. Their peers can tell them it's less than wonderful, or we can just not criticize it and put it on an idea sheet. But you don't want to lose ideas, thoughts, because the boss was there and he intimidates you. And, everybody kind of knows what the boss likes, right? I mean, that's what we do. He's going to like this. He's not going to necessarily like that. That's all fine. But just because he's the boss doesn't give him the right ideas. He's the boss. That's nice. But that doesn't, and that's one thing I say, maybe I should go through that presentation. But that's one of the things that you really got to watch out for. If you keep this objective and don't try to sell, it'll work. It'll work really well. And you'll be working on spending your opportunity cost on what will sell, which is the whole game. Okay, great questions. Love them. Thank you.
So Eric, I have a question. This is Phil. So how do you approach the customer, the valued customer, to set up that meeting where, how do you get them to agree, that the benefit to them is worth it and all, so and so. So how do you do that?
Well, that's great high level salesmanship. It's not, you're talking, that's a challenge for your sales force. It's finding, it's getting, and it's quite often getting to know somebody that we as an organization don't know very well. But you're trying to get a meeting with the top people. Back in the way old days, we used to go to customers with what we call a contribution report, where we told them what we had done for them and put dollars on the page and did nice pictures. And we annually would go in and we'd go to the director of purchasing. In those days, it was director of purchasing at General Motors, at Fisher Body Ford. We'd go to the highest guy we could get in his office and tell him what we had done for him in the last year. And it was pretty effective, actually. Then you fold into that and say, hey, we had this concept we were thinking of. So that's maybe too high in the organization, but that's a challenge, Phil, and that's why somebody has to be dedicated to thinking about just that. You have to have a valued customer choosing meeting almost uh, with your top guys and say, okay, what are we going to do with this stuff? We got it now. Whose opinion do we care about? And that's a bunch of work. But it is when everybody walks out of the idea sheet meeting, they go back to business, which is what you're supposed to do. But somebody's got to continue to be focused on this. Now, I have offered myself for that role. I will be the ninja and nudge to make sure this stuff happens. For me, I have to question and ask them and so forth. But it's really the organization has to figure out whose opinion do we care about, who's going to tell us what it is we ought to be working on.
Other questions? I have another one, but let me see if anyone else has a question at this point. Anybody?
Yeah, this is Hervé.
Hi, Hervé. Go ahead.
Eric, along the line of the question of the valued customer, are there specific characteristics that you're looking for in that valued customer?
Well, yeah, it's somebody whose opinion you can trust, I think is the real key, because they're going to lead you to spending your opportunity costs. So it's somebody you can trust. It's usually a more senior person in your customer's organization, and somebody that's been around the, been through the wars a few times, and that person, the choosing of that person is real important. With a seasoned sales force, usually they know who those folks are. They might not deal with them week to week, but then it becomes, hey, let's get a meeting with that and see what he has to say. The response is in some of the bigger organizations, the response has been way better than you would expect. Some of the folks like to do a confidentiality agreement, but you say, okay, you want to do that, we'll sign that, I don't care. But getting that meeting, if it's properly presented to that person, to say we had a big meeting, all our people, we put all our ideas together to see what we can do for you, they'll usually accept that meeting. But it's, I didn't go through the characteristics. It's kind of like, somebody you could tell. I have done this a few times with the manager of a Walmart, for instance. Just went in, called up, said, look at the web, what is the guy's name? Usually you can see that. And then just say, could I have 20 minutes of your time? And a couple guys go in and we said, here's what we're thinking about, and it's amazing what you learn, because things that we think are just fabulous, he'll tell you why it's not a great idea. And you go, okay, put the CAD computer back in some other gear and don't design that thing, even though it's cool, we think.
Yep, got it.
Okay. Another question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I don't hear anybody else yet, but there's still more time. I will ask another one then. So I think, I'm trying to remember if you mentioned it in this presentation or if I saw it in your book, or maybe both. When you're building the idea sheet, you identify the alternatives, you said. And then I believe you say that for each alternative, you build a new idea sheet.
No. No, the alternatives are other ways to do it.
Okay.
The worst example I ever saw, I went to a company that made big flatbed trailers, and they wanted to make an idea sheet about their new, and I forgot what they call it, but their new super trailer, which, they had been talking about that and they'd been pulling it together to sell it. And I said, well, what makes it a super trailer? Well, the deck was a totally new concept and different, a beautiful deck, terrific. And the marker lights and the way things tied down and the suspension, all these things were different. And they said, well, we really want to go out there and tell everybody about, they wanted to put super trailer at the top of the page. And you go, no, put the new deck at the top of the page. And why is that just the new deck, which was a fabulous thing? Why is that new deck good? What does it got to do? And the alternatives are the old deck, which was wood. This was aluminum versus wood. Just put that on. Then if you want to do the suspension story, put that on another sheet. And maybe that's even too complicated because it's this and that. So take that into two pieces. That's kind of a big, hard to get your brain around, but it's like the idea sheet for dessert versus the idea sheet for ice cream and cake would be maybe an example. You know, separate those two because you're going to get a different reaction to the two. I kind of think of another example, but I run into that a lot where people want to say, hey, this, you know, and you say, well, that's another sheet, so put it over here. And sometimes it's a very small difference, but it's a difference that you'd really care about for somebody to tell you. So it's kind of like trying to take the guesswork out. You know, don't try to second guess what they really think is important. You know, write down or break it down so that. But no, on the alternatives, Phil, alternatives are the alternatives. Now, if there's an alternative that we could do,
Okay.
it's not a competitive product, then yes, then absolutely yes. Then make a sheet for the alternative we can do. I guess I'm not being clear. If it's an alternative that's competitive, that's why that column I used to have competitive, but you're right. If there's this way to do it or that way to do it or that way, then make 3 sheets.
Then you need a sheet for each. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good point. I'm sorry, I muddled it.
So that gets you down to more detail and clarify that, you know, what the differences are between each of those similar ideas.
Right. And the closer they are, the more you'd like to differentiate them and get the customer to tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let me get into it. I missed the very beginning of it. So
Hi, Bob.
I wasn't really certain on the idea sheets. But are you doing this as far as getting ideas or just proofing the concept that you're presenting?
It's kind of both. If you come up with new stuff that our group didn't think of before, and you have people that come into the meeting with a new thought that they just thought up on the way into the office or whatever, put an idea sheet out for it. But yes, to some extent, the things you're working on, put those on there too.
Yeah.
You know, and you may be working on it for company X because they might have even asked you. Make a generic idea sheet for it and go to company Y.
Yeah. The difference is this for the past 6 years or so, I've been teaching design thinking at Verizon, and I've been teaching not just taking a design and throwing up, but the first thing we go in is we sit there and we interview people to understand what their needs are and then convert their needs. So, and it's kind of agile design as far as interactive, finding out what their needs are and developing the product around their needs first,
right,
as opposed to coming up with a product and then trying to test it. We try to find their needs first. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Sometimes they do. Well, and that's fine. But if you take your group, you know, that's what I'm saying, 6 or 8 or 10 of your people, they know a lot of what the customer needs. They've heard. They know your business. They really know that stuff. So if they go through what their thoughts are, just thoughts, this would be new, or what you're working on, either one. But if you flesh it out that way, and then go to your customer, because it's the one thing, and I'm facetious about it, but I'm saying, if you go to a customer and say, hey, what can we do for you? What do you need? Well, they might say, I need a lower price, and I'll have a cup of coffee, thanks. You know, maybe you missed that one. But, you know, I'm being facetious, but, you know, the customer may not know the answer to that. What do you need? You know, and there's a lot of big highfalutin companies that, you know, oh yeah, we went through our little internal process. We figured out our next 5 years of needs. Well, okay, I've never seen any company really go through that whole notebook of all those steps, get all those approvals. I haven't seen it. Maybe it happens. One that was about 2 inches thick once, And I kind of said, is this what you guys really do? Oh yeah, that's what we spent. Oh, yeah. No, you don't. I've never seen the documentation of that. So it's nifty. Try and come up with your thoughts all worked out so that they're absolutely wonderful when you present them to the customer. But it's really better to just take your thoughts, don't prototype them, don't even ask would that really work for sure. Get them fleshed out in the idea sheet format and ask a valued customer who can really give you a good answer. And as I say, the best answer they can tell you is no, don't do that. It just saved you a boatload of work.
Yeah, the whole thing is you're not there to be a salesman. You're more like an anthropologist. And that's the question. You want to know why. It's not that they don't like it. I don't care if they didn't like anything, but the main reason is why.
Why didn't they like it? Yeah, no, why.
About it.
Well, and yes, and why. Yes, and why. Oh, I like that. Why do you like it? I guarantee it's for a different reason than we walked in the door thinking they would like it. And then what you're fishing for is if the guy goes, I see what you're doing, but hey, if it did that, then I would really be excited about it. Boom. Now that's what you go do. And you can do that in addition to one they like too. I mean, you're not going to do one thing and it's going to buy your next 20 years of business growth. But, that out of the box one where the customer didn't really know. We walk in, we go, hey, what about this?
So what's your idea about iterative, like going back, get the first thing, then go back, then go back on an iterative approach?
Precisely, yeah, and I put that in the book too. You go in, you have an idea sheet meeting, you come out, you have results. And I say, before you put the car in drive, you sit in the car and you write down exactly what they said so that everybody, and it's usually 3 people is enough. Yeah. You know what they said. You go back, you fold their input into your sheets, and particularly the ones they liked, you go back and you said, okay, here's what we believe you said. Did we get this right? Is this what you want? Maybe there's a little bit of development or sampling or something in there. Now you're spending opportunity costs, but yes, you got to go back and say, did we get this right? You told us last week that you really would love this if it did that. You still feel that way this week. So yes, absolutely iterative. Go back and make sure, because it's all about spending your opportunity costs. Going to the lab, going to the computer, spending that hours of doing things. And, you got to come up with good return on that investment.
Yeah, the worst thing is getting to the end and giving them the product and they say, that wasn't what I was looking for.
That's about as bad as it gets. Yep. And it's saying we woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's why the other presentation I'm not going to run because it's maybe too long tonight for Phil. But the other thing is that if you do this as a management culture, Marmon Group made it their product development culture. If you do it as a culture in the division, in the group, in the company, and you do it on a regular basis, even quarterly. Okay, you guys, come on, we're having another idea sheet meeting. Here's what we did last time. Where are we today? What's your new thoughts? If you go forward, and I've gone back to some companies and walk in, and these guys go after each other. They say, guy says, I have an idea. No, you don't have an idea. You don't have attributes, specifications, and alternatives. Oh yeah, well, okay. I mean, I have a thought. They get on each other for that reason, but it becomes a culturally good thing for your organization. And when, even if the boss isn't in the meeting, you go into the boss, I want $500,000. Really? Here's why. Here's what everybody said, why it's good, and so forth. Here's our idea sheet. You can use it to present. I'm in the corner of the screen, guys, because I'm slouching here.
Okay. Eric, I want to thank you very much on behalf of the whole section and everybody who attended tonight for the presentation. We very much appreciate your knowledge and ideas about the idea sheet and how it's used and how you've used it to be successful with your customers. So thanks very much for that.
Thanks for the opportunity, Phil.
No, you're very welcome. We are